Where do we go wrong as a society?
You said something about Squid Game last week. I think that would be a good point to kind of start off. I mean, now that we got this whole reality, I think reality TV in general has really just gone everything downhill. You know, because now everybody wants to be the next YouTube star. And credit to them. I mean, hey, if you can get 1 million followers and you're making $50,000 a post, good for you. But
it's just challenge this and challenge that. Like, do I care? I mean, I guess everyone does care.
All I'm saying is if you look down the line of scrimmage and you can't see the ball because his foot's in the way, he's probably offsides. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not a ref or a professional by any means, but I'm assuming that's where you're going, so I think we'll just keep it at that. I mean, should have been called. It was a great play. It's sad that it got called back, but the guy's offsides. At the end of the day, if somebody's offsides, he's offsides. You got to throw the flag and call the penalty.
He was blatantly offsides.
Yeah, I think Mahomes, for the first time in his career, needs to learn how to lose. I don't think he knows how to lose, you know, and I think that's what makes a great quarterback an even better quarterback is when they can bounce back. So, I mean, I know we got the two of the Chiefs playing this week.
At New England.
At New England. Well, I think Bailey Zappi comes out and zaps them, or what's the book say on this? Chiefs minus 7.5, over under 37. They're playing in New England. What's the weather going to be like for the game? I mean, that's the time of the year. I know we're getting a blizzard in Buffalo, I think. So I like the Patriots.
That's exactly where we went wrong as a society.
It's all Zappi's fault. So that's the conclusion.
It's time for the Bookie and the Bettor Show. If you're a sports fan, now it's time to play the odds and make every bet count. New episodes post every Thursday on your favorite streaming service. Now introducing Rob Kowalski, the Bookie, and Randy White, the Bettor.
Welcome to our show. It's the Bookie and Bettor Show. We are up to episode number 13. I'm your host, Robert Kowalski. I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Nick Schulte.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
Nick, I'm great. Thanks so much for joining. Let's take a look a little bit about exactly where society may have gone right in terms of picking these games. But honestly, there's 4 weeks left of the NFL season. There's some teams that have really stellar records, and yet we're looking at them as if they are washed up and not even playoff bound. Let's touch on exactly a few of these. But of course, as you all know, as we're deep into our season number 2 here, thank you, of course, for subscribing and watching. If you haven't, why haven't you? Please go ahead and like and subscribe us. If you're listening in on wherever you get your podcast, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a look here a little bit deeper from a Bettor's perspective, of course. What's happening here in the NFL. And of course, here's where things get a little quirky. Of course, we have week 15 has a Thursday night game. And then, of course, 3 Saturday games, the Vikings, Bengals, Steelers, Colts, and Broncos, Lions. Your regular menu of buffet items on a Sunday, including the Sunday night game. And then, of course, Monday Night Football is the Eagles and Seahawks. I'd like to start, Nick, with what I think is probably the game of the weekend. It's the Dallas Cowboys at the Buffalo Bills. I don't know exactly if I opened up the number right. I thought Buffalo, off of the result that they had, yeah, you know, I guess they won the game against Kansas City. I mean, the rules are the rules, as you said at the start of our cold.
When that timer hit 0, Buffalo had a higher
Buffalo
score.
had a higher
So,
score than their
usually
opponent.
the way it works. So I mean, it was a great play in that lateral by Kelsey, and I think
fabulous.
That's got to be the Chiefs' key to the rest of the season. Is just throw it to Kelsey and then let him.
And they just let him lateral and just
make
throw
a
it back
pitch down. Maybe they could catch that ball. I don't know, but yeah. I mean, game of the week's obviously got to be the Bills Cowboys. Do we have any weather update on that game? I don't know. Just take a page out of my good friend Randy White's book. That line just has trap written all over it. I mean,
okay.
how do you not take the Cowboys with their record? They're just coming off, the whole Philly thing.
Right.
But they're on the road. We know the Cowboys aren't as good on the road. Plus, we got the whole weather. I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of a snowstorm or something. So if I had to pick, I don't know how you don't take the Cowboys getting points in this game. I mean, I do think it comes down to a a one possession game, whether that's a touchdown or a field goal.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think there's going to be a blowout on either side. I think it comes down to, can that Cowboys defense step up and just, contain Josh Allen? I think that's going to be the name of the game. The Cowboys can score. They got plenty of weapons on offense. So I think it's really going to be a defensive battle. And to that point, I think that under is looking pretty good. 50.5 right now. So
Right, 50.5. I opened the Bills as a 2-point favorite. It got bet down to 1.5. So I feel like we know what the floor is. It's definitely 1. I feel if we make the game 1, you're just going to get Buffalo money nonstop. And we definitely know that it's definitely not going to be 3. So I believe the ceiling is 2.5. Because if it's 3, it's nothing but Dallas money. So I think I probably massaged it into a pretty nice spot here. Irregardless, though.
That's why you're the bookie.
So they tell me. You're taking, though, irregardless. Now, this is a tough position here because you're still liking. I mean, look, obviously, Dallas with 10 wins on the season, they're peaking at the right moment is actually the definition of what Dallas is doing right now.
100%.
Which actually, I'm going to bring this up because I don't know if we'll touch on San Francisco being that they're such a giant favorite. Here, I'm going to give you this scenario. Let's talk about buy or sell. I'm going to put Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. So you get Purdy and Prescott in one bucket, and then the NFL in another bucket for regular season MVP. Which one are you taking?
Purdy
and okay.
I mean, stats are stats. At the end of the day, it's who wins and who loses, right? But when you look at Purdy's stats, I mean, it's pretty unbelievable what the guy's doing with his passer ratings, his yards per attempt. I mean, every one of those key metrics, so to speak.
So wait a second.
Pretty much.
You're absolutely right. No, he's hitting every metric that you want. But you're telling me if I take away Dak Prescott and just give you Purdy, you're also taking Purdy versus the NFL.
Again, you just look at those stats. I don't see unless he just the next couple weeks goes completely upside down and starts throwing a bunch of picks. Knock on wood. I don't see how the kid doesn't win it. I mean, granted, he's got the weapons on offense. He's got the line. He's got a lot of things working for him. But to come into that team and that organization and to go from Mr. Irrelevant to Mr. Relevant in less than a season. I mean, who doesn't love a comeback story? The underdog, and I don't see how you don't vote for the guy.
Looks like I made a really bad number then because I wanted to give you Purdy and Dak Prescott. You're fine with just Brock Purdy unto himself. So I could even get Prescott in the rest of the NFL, and you still like your side.
And the reason that I do that is it's not, and I'm sure they don't look at this in voting, but how did they look head to head when Purdy played Dallas? We all know how that game turned out. Who's the real MVP?
Very, very fair.
So
okay, cool. So in this case, though, Dallas Cowboys is the selection here for you, Nick, plus the 1.5. Let's just call it. Okay, good.
I don't see with their record and their talent how you don't take Dallas getting points, right?
Yeah.
But again, they're on the road. That's going to have, and I'm sure there's going to be some weather back there. So I definitely like the under. But yeah, I just Cowboys all day long.
No, all right. Let's go to the same division, same record.
Really quick before you get, do we have any stats on these interdivisional matchups? From the last couple of years. I mean, because I think that's got to play a little bit. I mean, they play each other unless they get in the Super Bowl once every 4 years.
Yes.
So I think again that's why I kind of like that under a little bit more in this game, just because I think it's going to be more of a ball control, time of possession, defensive kind of battle. So
your instinct is actually factually correct.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, especially when it comes to division play. You're right. I don't go as far back as the Randy Tandy 3000, going back 10 or 20 years, however far back Randy goes.
Before the 3-point line?
But yeah, exactly, before that. I want to just go and look, last couple of years tops. So very good point, though, from a division perspective. Those interdivision games tend to be a lot tighter for one reason or another. Just familiarity.
Yeah, and it's the same thing, I'm going to kind of touch on the Saturday games here in a second, but I feel like we kind of saw the same thing with the international games. You know, just with that jet lag and everything else, you weren't seeing that explosive offense that you kind of used to. I mean, you had some big teams in there and some big overs, and I think everything hit under this year internationally.
Neutral fields, neutral stadiums, neutral arenas, they all all play into unfamiliarity, and then obviously to unders and or mistakes, which that's not going to lead to points in most cases.
Yep.
Same division, same record. Let's take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles on the road in Seattle. Got a couple of question marks here. The biggest one is on quarterback Geno Smith. If it's not him, it's Drew Lock. As of the time of this recording that we're coming to post right now, it doesn't look like it's going to be Geno Smith. And with that, the Eagles, a 4-point favorite in the total 47.5, Nick.
Let me just check something real quick, because I thought I saw this morning that Geno Smith was full participant in practice, but I could have misread that, because I thought he was going to play. I would say Geno Smith, I think this game really comes down to more of the Eagles than anybody else. I mean, if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm kind of thinking this is a must-win game for you guys. I don't think they're going to come back and get that first round bye they want, but really it's coming. They're playing who's going to win the division. Is it going to be Dallas or is it going to be Philly? And so this is a tough game. I mean, the Seahawks are a good team. They're at home. We all know they have that 12th man up there with that stadium. Eagles getting 4. I like, again, confirm on Geno Smith, but does that even matter this year? We've had 50 backups, and we didn't see the backups come in and crush. So
that's so true.
I would like to say I'm taking the Seahawks on this one. I just think home field advantage plus getting 4 points.
Right.
Again, I think it comes down to a one-possession game, and I think Philly, this one kind of does a little more clock management. Keep the offense off the field, kind of a thing. So.
You're absolutely right when it comes to the Seattle and their home field advantage. One of the few clubs that I actually give a 2-point advantage instead of 1.5 in terms of point spread, of course. And so when I do offer up 2 points to Seattle, so then actually if you put them on a neutral field, could this possibly be? The Eagles are only 2 points better than Seattle. Some people might say you're completely out of your mind, Bookie. How could that possibly only be that short a number? But I haven't really been as impressed to see. Now, look, from an offensive perspective, the push that the line makes thanks to Lane Johnson and the offensive line that gives, like you mentioned, I think a couple of weeks back, it seems to be like 1st and 9 is basically what they have to play for. Yeah. The Eagles, of course, because if you get them on, 3rd and short, it's always going to be a first down just from their technique that they've created. However, the line is not good from a pass protect perspective, and that's what we've been seeing lately, at least in the last month, that Hurts has been rushed because that pocket collapses so quickly on him. And maybe that's what the whole entire secret to his sauce was going to be. I think that was revealed. And I think if you're able to remove the pocket away from Jalen Hurts and give him as little time as possible, you're going to find him making mistakes, turnovers, rushed passes. Maybe he ends up getting out of the pocket and suddenly it's a massive sack for like -8 yards, but it's definitely not the Eagles' offensive line from a pass perspective that I've seen in pretty much his entire career, Nick.
No, and I 100% agree. Obviously, the protection is not there. He's not getting that extra half second to a full second to make his reads, make his checkdowns. But also to that point, I believe this is Hurts' third year in the season?
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, third season in the NFL. And I really think at this point now, your defensive coordinators, they have plenty of game film. Yeah. They're learning your tendencies. They're learning what you're doing, who you like in certain situations. And so I think they're starting to kind of scheme around that. And, I mean, to go way back, I mean, you remember when Colin Kaepernick came in the league? I mean, he was just lights out. Nobody could stop him.
No one.
And then within a season, defenses figured out how to stop the read option. And then they, you got to make them beat you with your arm, and we all know how that worked out. Right. So I think it's a combination of, they got to bump up that offensive line, give them some more time. But it's also the defensive coordinators, props to them for, kind of game planning around him and putting him in situations where he's going to make mistakes.
I agree. So very well put there. I'm putting you then on Seattle +4 here.
I like Seattle +4.
That's 2 picks, 2 dogs for Nick Schulte. On to game number 3, and this one is a strange one, Nick. Mm-hmm. Kansas City Chiefs at the New England Patriots. Moved to a day, out here, Pacific, 10 a.m. I checked the weather report in Foxborough. looks nice. 50 degrees, rain, but not until late in the day, so it's not like it's going to have any kind of weather. So then why, Nick? Why did this game that I opened up Kansas City as a 10-point favorite got bet down all the way down to 7.5? And then, part B, who are you taking?
That's a tough one. I mean, at the end of the day, I still believe the Chiefs are winners. I think, come playoff time, they're still going to make a push. They're still going to be in contention, and I'd be very shocked if they're not in the AFC Championship. With that said, I think, we all saw what happened, last week. Zappy coming out, doing great. So I think some of that momentum wants to ride on that. Obviously, the Chiefs just need to learn how to catch a pass. I mean, how many times is Mahomes going to hit some guy? And that's just going to get frustrating after frustrating after frustrating. So, but I don't see how you don't take the Chiefs at -7.5. They should easily win this game by 14. So, with that said, I also think, I heard the news this week. Belichick's out in New England, so I don't know if that has any effect on anything. Maybe. So, I like the Chiefs.
I don't do this often, but if I was to ever switch sides to your side of the counter, this is one of those that I'd come out of retirement on Kansas City for. Especially now that it's down to 7.5. That's just a very low number, and I think that if you just look at this just on the surface level, you really have to say to yourself, why is this number so low? This has nothing to do with trap and everything to do with what happened last week on both accounts. Kansas City, clearly far superior offensively, defensively, special teams, coached. Yes, I did say coached. And because they're just, in my eyes, they're far, far superior. I'd be shocked if on Sunday morning, if you're listening Sunday morning or even earlier, that this game doesn't climb back up to as close to its original number, if not even surpassing it. So 7.5, grab that 7.5.
All day.
If I was on your side of the counter, I really would.
Yeah,
take a look at Kansas City for a long, long time.
I mean, the last time I saw something like this, I believe it was who was it? Mayweather and McGregor.
Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I mean, take out a second mortgage on that one. Mayweather ain't losing. I can tell you that.
Oh, what a day that was! I cannot believe the amount of support Conor McGregor got.
Same thing with the Patriots. You just got to ride that wave, and people put their money where their mouth is, kind of a thing. So, good for them. But yeah, I mean, and I always like to play this little scenario in my head. I mean, if these two teams played each other 100 times, right, what would the final outcome be, after those 100 times? And I got to say, if they played it 100 times, 95 of those games, the Chiefs are going to win by 10 or more.
Yeah. So. And exactly, and that's another good point, right? If you're just listening in and you're attempting to figure out a little bit more about how a bookmaking or a handicapping effort goes into each game or matchup even, it's exactly it. For the better part, if you could pick the winner, you're probably also going to have the spread covered in most cases. So great point there, Nick, in terms of how many, if you play this game 100 times, how many times does New England win, right, on a fluke? You said maybe 5 times. And so there you go. You pick the winner, probably got the cover there as well. We did mention that there had a couple of games on Saturday, and I want to take a look at one here in particular because hey, Broncos, you guys have come a long way since having 70 put on you by Miami early in the year. And some people might say with just 4 games left, there's a possibility of maybe even making the playoffs in the AFC. Nick, they go to a wounded, if not embarrassed, Detroit Tigers? Lions? Oh, my? Bears? No. It's the Lions. Of course, it's the Lions. And they're 4.5 points to favorite. This game opened 4. It went up to as high as 5.5 before settling back down to the 4.5 that we're currently at. The total 47.5. Nick, many trends have already been unearthed and discovered that the Detroit Lions, coming off of a loss, are a pretty tidy selection. Do you feel otherwise?
My gut says I like the Broncos in this one, just because I think they're doing some great things. They got that momentum on their side. They're going strong. And to that point, how much do you think is Russell Wilson versus how much is the coaching? I mean, how much does coaching really play a factor? I mean, so props to Sean Payton for kind of turning this thing around. But I'm with you 100%. You know, every time you see the Lions get embarrassed, they come out looking for blood the next game, and I don't see anything going otherwise in this one. So I think Lions -4.5 all day. They should win by 7.
Do you think so if I'm just looking at the total of 47.5, so I'm thinking I had the Lions somewhere in the vicinity of 28 to 31 points. Would you think that hits that median, or you want to go higher on Detroit?
No, I think 20 to 31 it's a good kind of, because I think Detroit kind of comes out probably to a 10 to 14 point lead, and then they just start kind of playing, you know, game management, clock management, you know, and at this point too, this part of the season, I think a lot of, you know, teams that are going to for sure go into the playoffs. Yep. I mean, they're not official yet, but unless something big happens, the Lions are making it in the playoffs. And at what point do you start looking at, hey, do I want to risk, you know, Goff getting hurt or St. Brown getting hurt or something like that? So do you start maybe running the ball, chewing up a little more clock, and just kind of managing the game?
You know, I don't think that I want to exactly break down and take a look a little bit deeper at the Chicago Bears and their matchup against the Cleveland Browns. But since we're, you know, talking about their division, and I started talking about Lions, Tigers, and Bears. So I'm going to give you another fun little scenario. I'm going to put a GM hat on you, and I'm going to give you 2 options. So you have Justin Fields, right? It's been a couple of years now. You haven't really amounted to much with him, but you've got so much draft collateral. So I'm going to present to you option A and B again. A, you keep Justin Fields as your quarterback, and you then trade the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft for first rounders this year in 2025 and 2026. Okay, that's option A. B, you trade Fields. Okay, now you have no quarterback. For a 2024 second round pick, and then obviously draft a quarterback with a number 1 overall.
Well, how many times does drafting a quarterback number 1 overall work out? And why doesn't it work out? Because you don't have a line to protect him. You know, you got a rookie coming into the league, and it doesn't matter. The same thing. Look at Justin Hurts. I mean, or, you know, he's a great quarterback, but he's really hurting. Why is he hurting? Because he hasn't got time in the pocket. So I think you know my answer. You keep Fields, you take those draft picks, and you build a line that can protect the kid. You know, I mean, clearly he's shown glimpses of what he can do, and I think he could be a great quarterback. But if you don't have time to make your checks, make your read downs, it doesn't matter. You can have the best guy on the planet. You can have Brock Purdy. Still ain't going to do nothing.
No, so true. Well put.
My MVP.
Nice. Justin Fields?
No.
All right, cool. Hey, one more game I wanted to take a look at for our listeners and watchers at home. Thank you. I have the Ravens as a 3-point favorite at Jacksonville. So last week, I really didn't realize that Trevor Lawrence was officially going to play for Jacksonville until they announced it. Now, all you sharp bettors out there, as I was starting to take a look at the bet ticker very early Sunday morning, you guys told me before that list even came out. That's how sharp all of you are. And that's clearly a very good indicator as to whether or not a player's coming or not. So he did play. I mean, he looked okay, not as sharp as a Lawrence quarterback game typically is, but not many are against Cleveland. Cleveland's defense is incredible this year. But we're not talking about Cleveland right now. We're talking about Jacksonville at home catching points. Now, this isn't to anybody. To me, the only team that I have lower than another is actually the San Francisco 49ers in my personal power rankings book. San Francisco number 1, Baltimore number 2. And so if today I chose who participates in the Super Bowl, it's exactly those 2. It's San Francisco and Baltimore. Neither here nor there in week number 15. But the reason I have Baltimore as a 3-point favorite is that's the reason right there. I actually think it's going to end up closing 3.5 in my opinion. But Nick, Lawrence back healthy. No more Christian Kirk. That's going to hurt significantly. And I don't think that that's the reason they're a dog. I just think Baltimore is that much more superior. But prove me wrong.
I don't think I got any legs to stand on proving on that one because
Okay.
I think Ravens all day long. I mean, they should win by 7.
Okay.
So I would agree. I think right now, still remember what I said about the Chiefs. I think come playoff time, they're going to fix whatever their problems are, and I do expect them to make a push. And I definitely, if I had to pick it right now, the AFC Championship is going to be the Chiefs and Ravens, and I think the Chiefs might shock everybody in that game. But we're talking about the Ravens and Jags.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters where they're playing. I think Ravens are a superior team. Jags got some injuries they're dealing with.
Correct.
So and even I don't think Lawrence is going to be at 100%. And then back to what I was just talking about. I mean, they're not official, but I mean, unless the earth falls off a cliff or something, I mean, the Jags are in the playoffs. So
Exactly. Very good point.
do you really want to? I mean, what does this game represent for you guys? I mean, do you want to risk losing your starting quarterback or anything like that? So I kind of back to, I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that kind of in the next few weeks of people, maybe getting pulled a little bit early or just some little more conservative play calls. But definitely like the Ravens at -3.
Okay, so to review, everyone at home, this is Nick's breakdown for my selections, at least, of these games. We started off with the Cowboys and Bills, which Nick took the Cowboys plus the 2. On to the Eagles and Seahawks. The Eagles get right in a big way, according to Nick, so Eagles minus the 4. Game number 3, Kansas City at New England. Kansas City was the selection here. I think it was double digits, right, Nick? Mm-hmm. In the Saturday game, the Broncos and Lions. Lions definitely stay healthy and move forward with another victory, covering the 4.5. And then here we are with the Ravens on the road, covering the 3 with a victory in Jacksonville. Nick, to wrap up, I mean, we covered some good games here, but did I go wrong anywhere here? Where did the bookie possibly go wrong? Is there a dog that, in your eyes, should have been the favorite? Or maybe just a really obvious miss here on my part? Make me wrong.
I don't know. I mean, I keep looking back to the Giants Saints right now. I mean, the Saints getting 6. I mean, the trend is your friend. I mean, the Giants got all they're rolling right now. So, but back to what I also said, they play 100 games. The Saints probably would win 80 of them and cover. So, but there's just something about everything the Giants got going on right now. I definitely think this comes down to a field goal game. So I like the Giants to cover. It's really everything else I think looks kind of pretty much in line. I mean, Jets, Dolphins is getting 8.5.
That one was high, by the way. We opened at 10.
Yeah. And
then, of course, the news came out that Tyreek Hill's ankle is going to keep him out of the game. That's what they say early in the week. However, the number obviously
is reflected of that.
Yes.
For sure.
So it makes you wonder, like, if he wasn't healthy, or rather, if Tyreek Hill was 100%, well, if he was 100%, they probably would have beaten Tennessee. However,
100%.
If he's healthy, I don't think this number drops off of the 10. I think it stays right where it is.
Yeah.
But 8.5, in some cases, we actually even dropped down to as low as 8 at the book at Baldini's before settling at this off flat number. So big number.
I like the Jets to at least cover. I mean, maybe even win in this game because I mean, at this point, what do they got to lose? I heard, Wilson's parting ways at the end of the season. So I think, maybe that was holding him back all this time. He was just afraid to throw the ball downfield because, I mean, he came out slinging last week.
He was playing with house money, as they say. You're right.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I feel like you take Tyreek out of the mix with Miami. What was that? I mean, that was
weird.
They fell apart. Like I 2 weeks ago, they were my number 1 pick to go to the Super Bowl because I thought nobody can beat their speed and match them. But really, I think they just kind of showed you take Tyreek out of the picture, and they're really not that great of a team, I guess.
The bookie went wrong as Nick wants to back Tommy Cutlets, touchdown Tommy. However, we have
with the family.
So many nicknames. By the way, his agent down on the field next to him was absolute pure gold. Those are my people, Nick.
I love it. And again, I think you're riding that bandwagon high right now, so that's why I like the Giants to at least cover that 6 against the Saints. So
Nick, you have yourself quite the plate in Week 15, so you want to go ahead and pick up another New York sandwich. Nick also likes the New York Giants catching 6. Thinks it should be no more than 3. Then he actually called out a quite possible Jets money line outright win. I'm not going to hold him to that. I'm definitely going to hold him to catching 8.5 points, though. He's not getting the full 10. No way. It's 8.5. It's the number that it is today.
I'm definitely taking him to cover, and then I might put a little bit out there to
just
wet the palate,
wet the beak.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then real quick, I kind of touched on interdivisional Saturday games. Do we think? I mean, is there any stats you've heard on that as far as totals, over-unders? Do you think it matters from a player's perspective? You know, what time of day you play, what day of the week you play. I think you kind of get. They've been doing this for so long.
Yes.
It's got to screw them up, right?
I would say that if you are a active player on the Minnesota Vikings or the Cincinnati Bengals, having a 10 a.m. Pacific start on a Saturday, I am not happy.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you something. I don't care. I want NFL every day of the week.
There we go. I like it.
But you're absolutely right. No, and look, this obviously, as we get into December and college football, it doesn't really take center stage, of course, now that they're into bowl season. NFL's realizing that, and they're going to fill that void with their NFL.
For sure. And then really quick, since we're on the subject, I get a question for you. I mean, I know haven't looked at it in a few weeks, but there was a huge streak through this season where you had to bet the under every game because that's all that was hitting was unders. So from a bookmaker's perspective, do you start looking at that and you start, shaving a few points because, everybody's just kind of looking that way, or do you just let the math do what the math does?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And so, and the trend is insanity. It's prime time unders to the tune of 70%, and that's still what it's clicking at. Nope. I don't. I let the math. I let minus 110 do
what it does.
Do what it does. However, the one thing that I will let slip out on this episode is we touched on it. Neutral playing fields. I am definitely a believer in neutral playing fields, and you will find, especially here at least at the Book at Baldini's, you may not get as high a total as you might someplace else just because of that, especially in college basketball. I know we typically don't talk much about college basketball, but, these kids that go, they play really comfortably at home, but you go ahead and play, let's say, for example, at Madison Square Garden or, at the Forum or, someplace that's not your typical home field or home arena. Maybe you're missing a couple of shots or you're being distracted by something that you normally don't ever see. And so for that reason alone, you'll probably see a half-point shade here or there to the under, at least from my perspective.
So what I just heard as a bettor is bet the over on the Super Bowl at the Book of Baldini's.
Correct.
Neutral field.
Correct.
I like it. Over on the Super Bowl. I like it. I heard it here first.
Thanks so much for joining us. Of course, if you like what you hear, like and subscribe down at the bottom. Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to see you again next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Bookie and the Bettor Show. New episodes post every Thursday on your favorite streaming service.